Welcome to the Morpheus Clinic for Hypnosis. Thank you for showing up tonight. Tonight is going to be about self-love and self-care, self-respect, and other essentials that only the very lucky among us actually got from childhood or from our parents. The rest of us kind of have to learn as adults how to give ourselves love and respect and care and these other essentials that add up to a good life. And we all kind of know that we have to give ourselves love and care, that we have to esteem ourselves, that we have to respect ourselves, but seldomly do we actually receive guidance as to how. And that's what I intend to do tonight. If we see hypnosis as an educational process where I'm leading you here through an experience of feeling self-love and self-respect and self-esteem and self-care, then even after tonight, you at least know it's possible to feel these things, and it's just lack of guidance that explains why you hadn't in the past been feeling self-love or self-care or self-respect to the degree that you might have seen your confident, secure friends feel. Backing up a little bit, just want to make sure cell phones are off, that they're at least set to silent. We're going to start with a bit of an explanation as to what to expect, what hypnosis is, what it isn't. I'm going to outline for you the topic outline, the main points I'm going to expand upon that I'm claiming to be the constituent parts of self-love and self-respect and self-esteem and so on. I'll give you a chance to make specific requests. I'll have you ask any questions that you might have, and then we'll begin. So if you've never been hypnotized before, what you might expect is that during a session, I'm going to be guiding you through your inner world with my words, with my voice. And your role in the process is to listen and, to the best of your ability, to suspend analysis, to at least temporarily take on the ideas that I'm sharing here. And if you do find that these ideas fit in your mind, in your life, into your morality or your worldview, then, well, at least here you're having an experience of seeing yourself or the world through a different lens. And then later on tonight, when you've left the space and you're back at home or you're in transit, then you will have recently been exposed to these concepts I'm going to expand upon today. And then in your own head and heart, you could continue to think in these new ways. And then when you see in real life that what I've claimed to be best practices for thinking are for you actually better practices for thinking, it's going to be real life experience that really solidifies this. So that way you don't really have to just trust me when I say that this is how a self-confident person might think. You can actually just put it to the test tonight. I'm also going to claim that if you're self-loving and self-confident and you have self-esteem, that you're not going to become a jerk. That those who are jerks, that those who are narcissistic and arrogant, that they lack in self-love, and you're going to go the opposite direction of that. Again, you can see that as soon as tonight. If you find that people still like you, if your family and your friends still like you, when you show up self-loving and self-respecting and self-confident, then that just underscores the ideas that I intend to introduce here today. So the hypnosis bit really is just a vehicle through which I'm going to deliver the ideas I'm going to deliver. And if you kind of feel like you're a kid at the feet of your favorite storyteller, then that's the right feeling. You shouldn't expect to be falling asleep. You shouldn't expect to be out of control. You shouldn't expect to be in a kind of supernatural or mystical state, although it is an altered state of consciousness. Usually people feel like time passes more quickly. Usually people feel like they're very heavy or that they're very light. But the main point of hypnotism is to suspend disbelief and then to take to new ideas, which will be the ideas I'm going to verbalize. Are there any questions about the hypnosis part? No? Good. So let's outline the topic. I'm not so bold as to claim that I know for all of you for sure what a good worldview is for you, but I am going to at least suggest to you what seems to work for me and what seems to work for many of my clients. And when it comes to the topic of tonight, so self-love, self-respect, self-care, there are three main points I'm going to share, and if there's any objection, please voice them before we get into the session, and if you think I'm missing any significant part of the message, then again, please verbalize it for the benefit of everybody. The first point is that you're alive, and the rules for how we treat life are going to be different from the rules for how we treat objects or things, right? So you could curse at a computer that is failing and without any really detrimental consequences. But you can't curse at your dog without detrimental consequences, let alone friends, let alone family. So if you kind of treat yourself as a living, breathing being, as opposed to like an object that could be neglected or abused without consequence, then at least those thoughts or a self-concept that incorporates your aliveness, well, it's not making the fundamental mistake of categorizing you as like an object or like a tool. Objects and tools only have worth insofar as they function and to a certain standard. But trees and birds and cats and dogs and friends and neighbors, they don't have to function exactly according to some specification to have worth and value. So that's what I mean by treating yourself as life. Giving you the set of rules that allow you at least not to make that mistake in your thinking. Another fundamental truth that a lot of us are missing, perhaps because it's so obvious, is that we're human beings. And for better or for worse, we do treat human life better than we treat like animal life or plant life. And I happen to know that everyone in this room is a human being. So if you treat yourself as a human being, again, you're not making a mistake. It's when you treat yourself as other than a human being that you could be making mistakes with thoughts that stem from that incorrect categorization of yourself. And finally, the third, what I'm going to claim to be the third pillar for self-love and self-worth as an innate and constant quality is, as far as I could tell, everyone in here is an adult. Now, again, the way we treat adults is going to be different from the way that we treat children, where children are kind of treated as though they have to be taught morals, that they don't even know how to cross the street by themselves, that they can't quite trust their own judgment, at least until a certain age. But by the time someone reaches 18, which as far as I can tell all of you have, your judgment and opinions and morality are considered to be so well honed that at election time, your vote counts equally to either of your parents or the mayors or the bosses. And this is actually the world you live in. This is actually how the world treats you. When we remember this, we can treat ourselves as adults and estimate our capabilities as being those of adults. If we forget this, we sometimes feel like a kid who's lost in the mall, which is an underestimation of our current stage in life. So those are the main 3 points that I'm going to expand upon if everything I've said is agreeable to you. It's you're alive, you're human, and you're an adult. And once you're an adult, you're basically an adult for the rest of your life. So I'm not seeing objections. Are there also any specific requests? I mean, obviously, I'm going to be talking for about 40 minutes to expand upon these concepts, but are there any major gaps that you want to request to be filled? No? Okay. All right. Final thing is hypnosis is not sleep. So if any of you fall asleep quietly, then you won't be disturbing anyone else. If you fall asleep and you start snoring, do I have your consent to wade into the audience, touch your hand, arm, or shoulder? Yes. Thank you. Okay, so I think that's everything. I'm going to play a little bit of music. Okay. And whenever you're ready, just lean back in your seat, get as comfortable as you're able to get. Take a deep breath in, and when you fill up your lungs, then breathe it all out. Perfect. In every breath that you're breathing, you can feel this aliveness that you'd just heard me point out. But here now you can feel it as palpably truthful. And palpably truthful for you, specifically, as an individual. So it's not just going to be the life in a tree, or the life in a bird, or the life in a cat, or dog, or child, or friend, or neighbor that matters. It's going to be your aliveness that's clearly among other life here on planet Earth that you feel as important and worthy of appreciation. You can feel this aliveness as a very simple matter of fact, and it's going to be a matter of fact tomorrow too. So this is not a one-time thing. Tomorrow you're also going to be able to take a deep breath and feel your aliveness and make decisions about yourself with at least that as a starting point. And perhaps you'll speak to yourself in a way that is fitting for life. I would suggest that for life, love is the rule. Not conditional love like we give to our iPhones, but unconditional love like we give to our pet animals, or perhaps to our loved ones. And for you to feel at least the love you feel for a tree or a dog, for yourself, claim to be inclusive. In every breath, you might feel more and more of a sense that your aliveness counts too, that your aliveness matters. And we don't have to envy birds or cats because we are among birds and cats. We don't have to envy flowers and majestic trees that stand tall and dignified in all weather conditions because we as well can stand tall in all conditions. Then I'll have you bring your attention up to the top of your head and imagine a wave of relaxation is beginning to spread down. That wave of relaxation is beginning to soften every muscle that it touches. So you can feel perhaps your scalp and your forehead and all the muscles around your eyebrows and your eyes. You can feel them soften and loosen and relax. That's right. Now here you're feeling how your body listens to a relaxing signal. It's not my words to you, it's the thoughts in your head that most directly convey to your body the messages that it's receiving. And perhaps then you can feel your body as an excellent listener. Then feel that relaxation spread down to the muscles of your face and the muscles around your mouth and your jaw. And as you feel your face and your jaw relax, as you feel those muscles soften, then again you can feel your body as an excellent listener. This is why you're going to be kinder to yourself. It's because your body's an excellent listener, like perhaps the most obedient child, that just believes your every word without questioning you. This body's been believing your thoughts without question. Here you're feeling how a good, relaxing, soothing, supportive message is heard immediately, just like it used to be a distressing message had been heard immediately. Then perhaps you'll feel that softness and relaxation spread from your jaw down into your neck. And you can feel the muscles of your neck soften and relax and loosen. It's not because I'm talking. My talking just approximates the thoughts that we'll want to have in your head, but it's the thoughts in your head that your body listens to and responds to. Then perhaps you can feel the softness be in your shoulders and down your arms, down your biceps and triceps and forearms and hands and fingers. That's right. Then feel that relaxation spread from your shoulders down your back, down the broad muscles to your lower back. That's right. Then feel the relaxation be in your hips, and feel it spread down into your legs, and the muscles of your legs share in that quality of relaxation all the way down into your calves and your ankles and your feet. That's right. From head to toe, you can feel a body that's more relaxed, more soft, more happy. And I can't take any credit for what you're doing in your head. You must recognize how your body listens to you and the thoughts in your head. And the more you hold on to reassuring, relaxing, soothing, grounding thoughts, the more your body gets those messages. Just like it used to be when you prepared for a bad thing to happen, your body braced for impact like the very faithful, obedient friend that it is. It's because of how excellent of a listener your body is that perhaps with this realization, in your inner world, you'll nurture those thoughts that you understand already to be worthy of a human being's heart and mind. And perhaps wherever you can identify thoughts or ideas that are unworthy of the human heart and mind, you'll pull them out like so many weeds, so that you can keep nurturing those thoughts, those ideas that are fitting for a human mind and fitting for a human heart. And you don't need special words or rules. It's actually the special words and rules you would use for yourself and wouldn't use for others that had caused you unnecessary distress. The same kind words you would use to speak to a friend or a sibling or maybe even a cat or a dog, or if you love your plants, even a houseplant, those words are the ones that you'll keep for yourself, and maybe you'll assess that as unhypocritical, as inclusive, as egalitarian. And it's actually the double standards you can abolish. It's actually the exemptions you made for yourself that you can completely relinquish, knowing that it is inclusive and it's egalitarian. And it broadens the total amount of people who are worthy recipients of your kindest thoughts. Perhaps you'll love yourself and you'll care for yourself, first and foremost, because your life, and your life that's under your care. The same rules for life apply to you. The same good thoughts, the same clean air and clean water and good healthy food that's good for any life that's under your care is good for you. And the same toxicity that you would shoo away from anyone you care about, you'll shoo away from yourself, too. It's because you're alive that healing and adaptation and growth are inevitable. Even a little houseplant with one green leaf, given enough sunlight, but not too much for that species, and enough water, but not too much for that pot, and enough nutrition in the soil, but again, not too much, well, that plant can be expected to thrive again. And its withered state was not a flaw in the plant, so much as those who were responsible for it. Well, since you turned 18, you've been responsible for yourself. And you do not have to perpetuate any neglect, let alone abuse, that had been modeled for you when you were a child. As your own self-authority, perhaps you'll relinquish so many thoughts and ideas that you might never have agreed with in the first place, and that as an adult, if you still don't agree with them, you don't have to keep them. And that does make a lot more room for those thoughts, those ideas, those principles that do stand the test of time. Even if there are thoughts and ideas you first had at the age of 8 or 12 and you still have them today, those are not childish thoughts if you still have them today. They're adult thoughts that were before their time. Perhaps it's meaningful that your judgment and your conscience and your morality are considered good enough to help set the future of the city, the province, or the country. And for you to count yourself as an equal among adults is to recognize your proper place in society. And it's the feelings that you're anything less than or other than others that are not quite right. Maybe they were never right in the first place, or maybe they became outdated when you reached high school or when you reached university. But from the highest levels of government, all the way down to the perspective of even a dog or a child, the world can agree that you're fundamentally an equal with the other adults. And the divisions are largely pretentious, but the similarities even a dog could see. If you're not a person who a dog would bark at, then perhaps you're doing things right. Maybe your feelings of equality with other people, including the very respectable people you know, and the successful people you know, and the well-loved people you know, maybe these feelings are an accurate assessment of you at your heart, you at your core. Perhaps those who focus on only what's visible, or in other words, superficial, do not have opinions with as much weight as those who really do take the effort to see you. Now, you'll always see the truth of your aliveness, and you'll see it as an undeniable, incontrovertible fact that you're alive and your life that's under your care. And treating yourself as life that's under your care is inclusive and unhypocritical, which means you never have to settle for any lesser standard. You do not have to neglect yourself. You do not have to abuse yourself. You do not have to perpetuate the awful ideas that you just randomly accumulated while growing up. Of course, you'll keep the principles and the thoughts, the opinions, the ideas that do stand the test of time, that you believed in as a child and that you still believe in as an adult and that you're likely to still believe in 10 or 20 or 50 years. But where I'm contradicting ideas you might have heard earlier in life, like ideas that you're other than life, or other than life that's under your care, or other than a human being, well, then you'll have to pick whether I am describing the truth or whether someone from your past had implied or described the truth. I'll claim that everyone who treats you as a living, breathing human being is actually looking at you and believing their eyes. And anyone who doesn't even treat you as a living, breathing human being probably isn't even looking, at least not at you, though they might see their illusions. And you won't take poorly informed opinions as somehow more valid than very well-informed, well-grounded ones. And more, perhaps you can see, feel, and accept the full, complete, and total extent of your aliveness. If you can agree that life is entitled to breathe as deeply as it needs to, the clean air that's abundant. If life is entitled to pursue happiness and peace, then you must also recognize these entitlements for yourself. When you didn't, you had somehow miscategorized yourself as other than like a tree or a bird, perhaps instead something like a tool or a robot. But that's a miscategorization. You'll correctly see yourself as fully, completely, and totally alive. Anytime you're feeling just half alive or 80% alive, you'll recognize you're just missing parts of it. And I don't mean that the parts are gone. I mean you're not seeing the whole thing. And perhaps you might feel from head to toe then that the trillions of cells making up you, each one doing excellent work, are still there, ensuring you're going to have a tomorrow, ensuring that you'll heal from injury or illness, ensuring that life goes on. And for us human beings on a multi-decade timeline. Even if others make their mistakes in front of you, like if a salesperson doesn't treat you according to the rules for life, then you'll see the mistake they're making in front of you and you won't perpetuate their mistake in your head. You'll know the truth about you. You'll know you're a living, breathing human being, and perhaps no one can convince you otherwise. Of course, your humanity is a constant, too. This humanity gives you the same innate and constant and inviolable worth and value and dignity that 8 billion people have. You are not superhuman, nor are you less than or other than human, and perhaps you'll relinquish any idea then that you're other than precisely 100% human as an exact quantity, and you should expect yourself to be 100% human and not superhuman, nor other than human. A lot of the great things that people you admire have accomplished are human feats, not actually superhuman feats. You don't have to be superhuman to love deeply. You don't have to be superhuman to bring people together. You don't have to be superhuman to create something original and beautiful. You just have to be as you are. a human being. So perhaps you can accept that along with your aliveness, you are a human being. For better or for worse, we treat human beings even better than we treat plant and animal life. So perhaps we're going to up the inner dialogue a couple notches more. Perhaps even more kindly than you would treat a houseplant. Even more lovingly than you would treat the best of cats or dogs. You will treat yourself with kindness and love, perhaps appropriate for a friend, and a very good friend. Or perhaps you'll treat yourself to the standard of respect and care and compassion that you would give to anyone who's beloved. And perhaps you'll assess this degree of love as enough. Not too much, but the right amount. And it's actually anything less that had perhaps been not enough, despite what you might have been shown when you were young. More and more, as you feel the full extent of your humanity, perhaps you can accept and embrace every weird quirk, every emotion, every feeling, every thought, every quirk of the human mind and the human body, which are both vastly complicated and which are acceptable as human, which almost by definition means imperfect. If even the tree does not have to grow stick straight to be considered a beautiful tree, if the cat can have tattered ears but still the heart of a cat and be considered a perfectly good cat, then you as a human being can consider yourself a perfectly good human being despite the quirks of your mind and or body. This is again unhypocritical. It's inclusive. This is to treat yourself no worse than you would treat anyone else in your situation. You do not need the double standards. You do not need the exemptions you made for yourself. You do not need the exclusions. You can relinquish them as unnecessary, maybe even harmful weeds that you'd pluck out to nurture the very same kind and loving thoughts you would express to another living, breathing human being. More and more, when you turn inwardly, perhaps you'll give light to the thoughts you find more beautiful, life-affirming, or joyful. Just like when you make a scrapbook or a photo album, you're going to keep those shots you find beautiful or representative or worthy. When you turn to your inner world, you'll recognize it's not just embarrassing moments in there. There's also the joyful moments, and there's also the loving moments, and there's also the wonderful moments, and there are moments where you've caught glimpses of your potential, and they all deserve the light of your attention, and more so than everything that's unchosen or unwanted or just not representative of you. Perhaps later on tonight at bedtime, you'll sort through all your thoughts and you'll give light to those thoughts, those memories, those imaginations that merit a spot in your mental scrapbook. The rest you can relinquish. This is not naive, I'll suggest. It's not naive to love the beautiful and the life-affirming, and it's not sophisticated to be negative and cynical, though sometimes you might have heard that idea floating around in the world. Perhaps it is more sophisticated to curate for your inner world the memories, the imaginings, the thoughts, the ideas that you find most authentic, most beautiful, most representative of you, most representative of your day, most representative of your free choices, or otherwise meeting your standards for what gets to be in your mental scrapbook. You do have the right to do this as a human being with our, massive intellects. We don't have to make ourselves miserable with our thoughts, especially if you're drifting off to sleep at night, or especially after a good day. Perhaps you'll be using your intellect to cause yourself more peace, to cause yourself more happiness, to cause yourself more love, knowing that you are then increasing the total net amount of happiness and love that's in the universe. That your creation of more love for yourself doesn't in any way diminish your love for others, or the love that others have for you, and only increases the total net amount of love that's in the universe. So just as freely as you would love a pet or a friend or any other loved one, you'll love yourself and count yourself among the loved ones. You'll count yourself perhaps as worthy recipients of your kindest thoughts and a mental scrapbook that brings joy. Here you're feeling in this chair that nothing bad's happening. If anything, good things come from attention on beautiful, life-affirming thoughts. Perhaps we can guess that later on tonight, nothing bad happens and only more good things happen when your attention is still on beautiful, life-affirming thoughts. And perhaps tomorrow or the next day, you'll see again for yourself that it is sophisticated to keep in mind the important things like your aliveness and your humanity, and to treat yourself accordingly. And it's sophisticated to curate for your mental scrapbook the more beautiful thoughts or ideas or memories or imaginings. And that perhaps any former pattern of imagining the worst, or being cynical, or downplaying joy, that is actually unsophisticated enough you might leave it behind you when you have a better way. When you have a better way to fall asleep at night, when you have a better way to be alone with your own thoughts, then you're going to do the better way as freely chosen and perhaps more sophisticated, more appropriate for this adult stage of your life. On top of your aliveness and on top of your humanity, you are, of course, completely and totally an adult. Your vote counts equally to everyone else who's past the age of 18, at least who hasn't seriously messed up their lives. So perhaps you'll step up to this esteem that neighbors, that people in power have granted to you. And you won't think they're overestimating you. Maybe it's actually your most undermining or anxious or negative thoughts that underestimate you, and it's actually people who treat you as an adult, who see you as you are today, without memory of who you had been when you were 10 or 15. For the rest of your life, you'll be an adult, and I'll add a genuine adult. Now let's relinquish the false idea that adults are perfect, or adults know everything, or adults always make the right decision, because you had to let go of that idea once you reached maybe 12, let alone your current age. Today, you must agree that adulthood doesn't mean perfection in anything. It just means you're making the most out of as many years on the planet as you have, and at this point you've had at least a couple decades. So I'm asserting that you already meet the standard for full, complete, and total adulthood. It's true that when you're 50, you're going to have 50 years of life experience to draw upon, and maybe your decisions then are going to be even better informed. But today, you're fully and completely an adult. Future things you're going to be learning do not invalidate things you've already learned up to now. At this point, you already have enough to draw upon that you can expect people to take you at your word. You can expect people not to second guess you or undermine you. And if they do, that's a flaw in them, that's not a flaw in you. You can also expect that you have the judgment and morality to agree that it's a flaw in the other person if they undermine your adulthood and autonomy. It's not a flaw in you. Understanding how adulthood is not perfection makes it okay to disagree with things you might have heard when you were 5 or 10 or 15 years old, even if it came from a teacher or a parent or someone you looked up to. Even they would admit, well, let's hope, they would admit that they made mistakes. They have learned, and they are not committing to what they said a long time ago. So you as well do not have to keep every thought or idea you heard perhaps decades, or at least certainly years ago, because sometimes the adults were wrong. Sometimes you were right. Just because they have more years of life experience doesn't mean that the life experience is current. It doesn't mean that they look as far into the future as you do, since you're going to be on the planet longer than older generations will be. So perhaps you'll feel like an equal to other adults here on planet Earth, other living, breathing human beings with at least a couple of decades or 18 years of life experience, and understand this to be your place in the world. To fully accept and embrace this, you must relinquish the thoughts or ideas that would suggest otherwise, because they're either outdated or had no truth to begin with. You can feel absolutely solid in your aliveness and your humanity and your adulthood, and then ideas to the contrary stand out in stark relief as maybe risible or ridiculous or easy to discard. You'll care about the opinions that at least have the basic facts straight. But if someone's treating you like a child, if someone's treating you like a thing, if someone's not even upholding the rules for how we treat living beings, then you can properly consider them to be wrong. Morally wrong, factually wrong, not having a good idea about you, at the same time that you have a very good idea about you. Now, you'll understand you're a living, breathing adult human being. And for the rest of your life, you're going to be a living, breathing adult human being where the rules for how we treat living, breathing adult human beings apply to you. And the rules for children, the rules for objects, the rules for trees we might chop down for lumber, they do not at all apply to you. You're not at all like a computer or a robot. You're far more like the wolf or the fox or the tiger. But you're mostly like esteemed peers or friends or neighbors. And you can feel your place among human beings as your proper place. It's true that sometimes any of us would have thoughts or feelings or ideas that we don't quite belong or that we're fundamentally different, but I might challenge such ideas. Because sometimes people put a spotlight on the differences rather than the similarities, but once you bring your attention to the similarities, then that's what you see. Like you see the similarities between a Great Dane and a Chihuahua, despite the superficial differences. So you can very much see the similarities between you and all other life, all other human life, and all other adult human life, to understand what you're capable of, to understand your worthiness and deservedness, to understand your place in the world, and what you might expect of yourself tomorrow or the next week. It's not going to be perfection, which is fine, because you don't need to be superhuman. Human capabilities, the human capability to adapt, the human capability to learn, the human capability to make sound decisions, well, these are all within you. And perhaps you'll make the most out of everything you already have before you even start looking outside the realm of what you already have. Because there's a lot you can do with just the little bit of listening you did here tonight. Maybe you'll sleep better. Maybe you'll be more comfortable being alone with your own thoughts. Maybe you'll accept compliments more graciously. Maybe you'll agree with friends when they show you love. Maybe you'll disagree with people who are not looking out for your best interests because you can see they're not looking out for your best interests. To fully preserve all that you're nurturing, the truths, the principles, sometimes, at least in your head and heart, you're going to think, well, that's a bad idea. Or, nope, no way, absolutely not. To the bad ideas that sometimes float around in the world or that you might even have heard in your past but don't hear any longer. Sometimes you're going to think, nope, that is wrong. And you are the highest authority over yourself. So, perhaps those kinds of words will be part of your working vocabulary so that you can preserve for the important spaces of your inner world, your heart, your thoughts, your imagination, the good. And you'll reject the bad ideas that truthfully sometimes you'll hear from other people, but that you have no obligation to actually agree with, especially if they don't even have their basic facts straight. I'll even claim that everyone who treats you as a living, breathing adult human being is not making fundamental mistakes in how they treat you. And everyone who doesn't see you as a living, breathing adult human being is, at some point, going to be making fundamental mistakes in how they treat you. So you're going to have to pick a side. And I would suggest taking the side of those who have their basic facts straight, so that you'll also feel and accept the full extent of your aliveness and humanity and your adulthood as rock-solid pillars for your self-love and self-worth, your self-esteem, your self-care, your self-acceptance, your self-compassion. As it all sinks in, I'm going to begin to count up, and as I count up, begin to bring your attention outward. Begin to feel energy return with every count, and let every part of you, let your heart and mind and body all come together to help you be back in this world with more realization of more truths that, though fundamental, are still important. 1. Become aware of where your hands and feet are resting. Become aware of where in the city you are and what you have planned afterward, and how your outlook on the evening and beyond might have changed already. 2. Become aware perhaps of the music. Become aware of perhaps the presence of other people in the room. Become aware of perhaps energy returning. 3. As you bring your attention and your 5 senses back to the room out here, you are emerging as actually the same person with the same station in life, only now you're realizing the very good things about you, such that you don't really have to change anything to love yourself and accept yourself and trust yourself, to be good to yourself, to treat yourself equally, because there's plenty there that's already there and always has been. 4. Then feel a huge wave of energy come all the way up to the top of your head, making you feel refreshed, making you feel energized, making you feel wonderful, so that you are ready to be back in the room out here, back in the world, to see yourself and the world through these clearer lenses, and to see for yourself that even without me talking to you, what I've said here is still truthful. Then 5, in the time you need for all of this to sink in and to fully emerge, then open your eyes and return fully and completely back to the room out here. Okay, so it's normal to feel kind of groggy. So if you need to, we only close at 8 o'clock, so you have up to another 30 or so minutes to let everything sink in. Otherwise, I'm going to be around if you have any questions. If anyone has any questions now, feel free to ask, or you can talk to me afterward.